All right, after some technical difficulties once again, uh, welcome everybody. I believe we are live, and Merry Christmas, belated, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year to everybody. This
Merry
is
Christmas.
Chinese Wrestling Sit Down, where we sit down with wrestlers and personalities from within and out of China. We get a more in-depth look into who they are and their unique stories that made them become prime candidates as our focus features here on Chinese Wrestling Sit Down. And this will be the last Chinese Wrestling Sit Down of 2020. And what a guest we have for you today. It is from Hong Kong still, right? Michael Su. How are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Yeah, a little volume problems earlier.
Yeah.
Where are you at right now?
I'm at home.
I don't know, but which country? Hong Kong, right? Or is it
Hong
somewhere else?
Kong. Yeah.
Hong Kong. During the pandemic, doing everything doing good over there? Or?
Yeah. Things here, I guess, relatively good. I guess to give you a little bit of insight to what's going on here, we're in technically this is the third lockdown that
Okay.
that has happened since the beginning of this year, and it's just restaurants closed after 6, like gyms have closed, most like entertainment facilities all shut down, amidst like a third small outbreak that came out of like a dancing circle, where people went to like a few dance classes and caught COVID. But I think it's the case numbers are going down, so hopefully like in a couple of weeks, like everything will be back to normal again.
I mean, how many cases per day usually?
At the moment, probably like 50 something, 60 something. But at the peak of this particular outbreak, I think it was about 100, 110, something like that per
Okay,
day.
yeah, getting it slightly high, I guess, like not as bad as over here in Vancouver. Vancouver,
Mm.
we're getting like maybe it was like around 700 a day
Oh my
for a
gosh.
little while, but now it's starting
Yeah.
to go back down. Yeah, we went to a
Mhm.
not really lockdown, but they suggest people don't go out and stay within your circles and type things like that.
Yeah. It's the situation everywhere. I can still see it going on for quite some time, unfortunately. So
Yeah, even with the vaccine.
yeah, even with
So
the vaccine.
yeah. So yeah, you're living in Hong Kong right now. Where were you raised exactly? Because a lot of your promo pictures
Yeah.
associate you with different nationalities.
Yeah. To put it in a nutshell, I was born and raised in mainland China, but I left at a very young age, and my family moved over to New Zealand, and that's where I spent like the bulk of my childhood. And I moved from New Zealand then to Hong Kong, through and lived here through all my teenage years before I headed overseas to the UK again. So when people ask me, the quick answer be Hong Kong, just because I've been living here the longest, and given the amount of time I spent here, I can relate to Hong Kong a little bit more than other places. But if I've got time, I'll run it down like
Yeah, you definitely don't have the Hong Kong accent. You have sounds like a
that.
UK accent to me before, but more of a New Zealand accent. I don't know
It's
what that sounds
it's
like.
it's the international school kids accent that they call it. It's just mixed all over the place.
Yeah, it sounds good though. The ladies love the accent. So, so what is it about professional wrestling that really got you into it? Like, was there wrestling in New Zealand growing up, or what got you into
Yeah.
wrestling?
So my first like sort of I guess like I'm trying to find the word for this. My first exposure to pro wrestling was definitely in New Zealand. I think it was. I don't quite remember like when or how this happened, but I was just flipping channels on the television. I'm pretty sure I came across some WCW,
Yeah.
and I can definitely remember Goldberg and Sting being in the ring because they just those two figures, they'd leave such a mark on your memory. You can't really forget what they look like. And that was like the first exposure to it. I'd never seen anything like it before, and I was pretty drawn in by it. And yeah, I just remember for a few weeks after that, I kept trying to flip channels around the same time, and I just couldn't find anything like that again. And from there, I didn't see any wrestling until I moved to Hong Kong. And I think this was 2004. There was a channel here on television called Star World, and they used to play TNA Explosion and TNA Impact, like the taped episodes. I think it was actually like up to date. They were actually, you know, like playing it like chronologically as to what was happening in the US, because sometimes things here get played on like a couple of weeks delayed. But yeah, I watched like a good amount of TNA for maybe 2 years before I knew WWE even existed. Yeah, and I started watching WWE around I think maybe like late 2004, 2005. But I picked up some videos of No Way Out 2004, which is coincidentally when Eddie Guerrero won the WWE Championship for the first time. And that instantly made me a fan, that whole event. And I remember like really liking John Cena back then as well, with his whole, you know, Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick that he was doing at the time. So yeah, I just fell in love with wrestling. I watched so much of it. And as time went by, I started, you know, trying like watching wrestling from around the world. And that's when on YouTube, back then there was a lot of Pro Wrestling Noah and, you know, New Japan Pro Wrestling matches that were uploaded. And that's how I got into Japanese wrestling. And the more I watched, the more I discovered. So, you know, I eventually found Dragon Gate, DDT. And yeah, from there, it just, I went crazy. I just watched as much as I could all the time.
Oh yeah. So how young were you when you mentioned you stumbled onto WCW? When how old were you then?
Gosh, I must have been like around 8 years old, probably.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Yeah, like I didn't even know it was pro wrestling at the time. I was just like sort of, you know, two guys standing in what looked like a boxing ring, just like beating the life out of each other. And, you know, as an 8-year-old boy, like that kind of stuff is like, whoa, that's really cool. Like, yeah.
Yeah, if it's a Goldberg match and it's definitely somebody beating on somebody else, yeah, mainly Goldberg beating on the other guy. So, yeah, thank you everybody for watching live here on MKW's Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you guys send in your questions for Michael Sue. We'll get to that pretty soon. Yeah, so your wrestling career has been filled with twists and turns. You started off in MKW and then you wrestled in Hong Kong. You started training with Ash Silva privately, and then you trained a little bit with Ho Ho Lin's HKWF, and then you actually did some training with Dragon Gate, and then I believe it was last year, maybe a year ago, even before that, you trained in New Japan Pro Wrestling's LA Dojo. Any interesting stories and memories from those experiences?
Yeah, that's a lot that's happened.
Yeah.
But I'll try to wind it back to maybe when it first started, just to, you know, give you a bit of a clearer picture. So I think it was around mid 2017 that I'd gone to my first ever HKWF show, because I'd been in Hong Kong at that point about 3 years after I moved back from the UK. And that was the first time I went to watch Hong Kong wrestling. And that show to me, you know, it really spoke to me in the sense that I deep down always wanted to explore the possibility of, you know, maybe wrestling, but maybe I was a bit too shy, held back a lot before, and didn't really think about it. But I'd gotten into like working out and going to the gym quite often, and I thought to myself, you know, maybe I can give this a go. I wasn't finding much pleasure from my full-time job back then anyway. So yeah, I just really thought, you know, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it, right? I think I was maybe 23 years old at the time. So I dove in. I sent a few emails around, you know, to nearby promotions, to promoters, asking if, you know, there was any opportunities to train. But unfortunately, in Hong Kong, where I was based, Ho Ho at the time wasn't taking any new students, because he'd just come back from NXT and was quite focused on a wrestling project they were doing in Macau at the time. So the only place that had availabilities to take in, you know, like a new trainee was MKW. So I think I gave it about a month or so. So in September of 2017, I traveled up to Harbin and I met with Adrian and the MKW crew at the time. And that was before Zombie Dragon or Uncle Money had actually arrived in China. So I did a bit of initial training with Triple T up in MKW with Cam Ferguson as well. He was starting around the time. And after that week of training, I thought, you know, I really like this, and it seems like, you know, I feel like I can get the hang of it. So yeah, Adrian introduced me then to Ash, who was, you know, based in Shenzhen, but would travel back and forth between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. And whenever he was free, we'd link up and do some practice as well. So yeah, from there, the training went quite well. I think about a couple of months later, fast forward to March in 2018, that's when I made my debut for MKW in Harbin. And yeah, the rest is the rest. It wasn't that long ago, but the rest is history. From there, I think I arrived in the Chinese wrestling scene at a very interesting time in the sense that a lot of foreigners had come over. It was around the time when OWE was first set up as well. So in terms of movement, there was a lot. And now that Ho Ho Leung had come back, he was taking bookings, nearby, and there just all of a sudden a lot of opportunities sprang up at the time that made it available for guys like me to get involved. So I think after one or two shows with MKW, I'd actually met Bitman at an MKW show in Harbin, who then introduced me to the local HKWF crew here, and that's how I started doing some training with them too. And I think after about half a year, Dragon Gate came over to Hong Kong in October of 2018 and did their first show here. And luckily, I was able to perform on that show as well. From
How about
there,
the New Japan dojo? Any stories from there?
so that came 1 year after that. No, sorry, I'm getting my timelines mixed up. It was in the same year. So at the time when I was applying to, just trying to contact different wrestling promotions, it was like the tail end of 2017, early 2018. I saw that they were promoting this LA Dojo training camp where, I think the longest camp was maybe like 5 days. And just out of curiosity, I applied. I didn't really think I had much of a standing chance to get in, really. But fortunately for me, I think it was like maybe September or October in 2018, right before the Dragon Gate show, I gotten an email saying that they'd happily accept me for the first week of December in 2018, which was the last training camp of that year. And yeah, I remember being so excited. I couldn't wait to get myself over there, and literally like was counting down days to go. So when I arrived on the first day, they kind of went over what the next kind of 5 days would be like, and I can tell you the bulk of the training there was physical conditioning, which is a lot of the traditional Japanese, lion push-ups, squats, a lot of in-ring basics, and they'd make us run the ropes hundreds of times until we got the hang of it. Practicing a lot of basic chain wrestling, basic lockups, techniques in the ring, how to improve, the way you see the ring. So a lot of the training was more focused on ring positioning and tumbling, how to navigate your way around the ring, and even kind of let us go loose a little bit with the Greco-Roman wrestling. Shibata-san wanted to see how the rookies at the camp would fare up against his young boys, and suffice to say, we all didn't do very well. But it was a hell of an experience, really memorable for me, because that was, I think, quite crazy to think that from March that year, I just stepped into a wrestling ring for the first time. And, being where I am in Hong Kong and in this region, we don't have a lot of ring time. We don't have a lot of access to an actual ring. But in the span of 1.5 months, I'd been in a ring with the Dragon Gate logo in the middle. And about a month and a half later, I was in LA in the New Japan ring, which is something that, I'd only ever seen on YouTube and dreamt about being in. So it was just a bit of a whirlwind at the end of 2018.
Yeah, you picked up the game pretty quickly, and your demand in Asia, became quite high very quickly. Also, so how does it feel to be a pro wrestler wrestling in so many different countries?
It's amazing when you think about it, because if you look at pro wrestling traditionally, guys that work in maybe the UK or Mexico, Japan, or even the US, most of the careers, especially if they do get signed to a top company, would be mostly touring around the same country and visiting different countries. Whereas in Southeast Asia, or the region that I'm closer to, it's not like that. All the different promotions, instead of like the US being a couple hours drive away, down here it's a couple of hours away by flight. And you'd really have to go from Hong Kong to Singapore, and then maybe to Malaysia, and then all the way down to Taiwan, back up to Korea, Japan. So you'd have to get around the countries quite a bit. And I think by the end of 2019, in the span of 1 year, I'd wrestled in 9 different countries, which was just really, really outrageous for me to think about it. So yeah, I'm really thankful for that. And going back to the point I said a little bit earlier, I think I was lucky in the sense that there were just so many different things happening at the same time for pro wrestling. I think 2019 was a very good year overall. There was a lot of growth in the Southeast Asia region. We saw the launch of a couple of new promotions as well. So yeah, before the pandemic hit, I think it was really on the right track to becoming something a lot bigger. But yeah, I'm thrilled by the growth in 2019 and the amount of involvement I had in it as well.
Yeah, you had an amazing career so far. We are live for Chinese Wrestling Sit Down on MKW's Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, keep sending in your questions for Michael Su. So let's take a look at some questions we have for you from Chester. Take care of yourself, you both. Thank you, Chester. And yeah, so fun while getting quarantined.
Luckily, I haven't been subject to that yet, so
self-quarantine so far. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be exempt.
Okay, so from Aaron Peckham, Michael, got any plans to pop up on MKW Blastoff or come back for the MKW Championship? That was gonna be one of my questions, actually.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do. I'd love to be back, and I'd love to challenge for the championship that I think I didn't lose in a very fair manner at Bash at Shenzhen towards the end of last year. So that's definitely within my plans to come back and challenge for my championship again. As of right now, I guess just a little update for everyone as well. As you know, I injured my right leg towards the end of my tour in Dragon Gate back in March, and since then I've had surgery and gone through a couple of months of rehab. I'm feeling good. I think I'm very close to being able to return. So whenever the travel restrictions around Hong Kong and China and the region nearby gets a bit better, I'd definitely be on the move again.
That's good to hear. So you can't fly to Harbin right now, right? You gotta be quarantined or.
No, I definitely need to be subject to 2 weeks of quarantine, and it's not that I'm unwilling to go through that at the moment, but just as of a few months ago when I was still dealing with rehab and needing to be physically in Hong Kong and having access to the rehab center and everything, it was quite hard. But who knows? Plans may change in the coming year.
Yep, sounds good. Any more questions? If not, gonna move on. Alrighty. So yeah, so within like a year and a half of your wrestling career, you did win the MKW World Championship. Tell us about that experience and that moment for you.
Yeah, look,
what it meant to you, basically.
Yeah, nothing short of amazing.
Yeah.
I think my plan at the very beginning was to just become a pro wrestler in the region and try and see if I could do it really, and for it to go so quickly that a year and a half later I was able to challenge for the championship and then win that championship. It spoke volumes to me in terms of my peers around me having the faith and having the trust in me to carry such a position. But at the same time, it really kind of gave me a bit of a boost in the right direction, in the sense that I thought maybe I can make a career out of this and I can go one step further than just being an independent wrestler in the region. I really wanted to make this more of a full-time thing. So it gave me confidence. At the same time, made me proud, but also very nervous. Being so new to the industry and suddenly being launched into main events is something that can be quite nerve-wracking for anyone. So I think, I made the most of it. I hope, and I hope I didn't disappoint anyone with my performances as champion. But yeah, it's something that I miss and something I'll definitely look at regaining again.
All right, look forward to seeing that. And you mentioned that you're a fan of Japanese wrestling, and it's always seemed to be a goal for you to wrestle in Japan. And that dream came true shortly after you won the MKW Championship. So any experience and stories about Japanese wrestling that you want to share with us?
Sure. My first match in Japan was at the Pro Wrestling Live show back in August last year, where I defended the championship against Keisuke Goto. So, as I mentioned before, I'm a big Japanese wrestling fan, and I'd been following it for a very, very long time. So almost to a point where I'd mentally prepared myself to perform in Japan in front of fans that would start a match maybe clapping quite loud, but spend maybe the next 5 minutes in absolute silence. And you watch that on video and you think to yourself, okay, that's what you're going to expect. But being there in that atmosphere and just feeling every single pair of eyes on you from from within the venue, that can be very, very nerve-wracking. But as the match picked up, you start to feel more confident, and the crowd starts to respond a bit more, and that's when you get into your groove, and it does get a bit better from there. But yeah, I was really, really nervous, but something that I had to sort of get accustomed to really when it came time to time fast forwarded to my Dragon Gate tour. But yeah, it was really memorable. I think being able to be in such a historic kind of it's almost a culture in itself, in pro wrestling, and being able to be immersed in that is really quite interesting, and for me something that I've wanted for a long time. So yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, 2020 has been a bad year so far, but still, in the beginning of 2020, you did get to work for Dragon Gate, and you get to wrestle in the legendary Korakuen Hall. Any stories from there, and what was it like? What was it like in there at the hall?
At the Korakuen Hall specifically, you walk into the venue. So I've been to the Korakuen Hall twice. Once was last year in August when I went to watch a Dragon Gate show there, and the second time was when I actually worked the opening match for Dragon Gate there. So for me, both times I went in, you stand for a couple of seconds in silence just to admire the venue, and you think about the history and the number of matches that have happened here. So yeah, for a wrestler, it is a bit of a cliche, but really, for a lot of people, it's a dream come true. Being able to look out into the crowd and see so many people, and just to kind of feel the atmosphere, and really let yourself I kind of had to pinch myself on the way to the ring just to sort of let myself know that I'm walking to the ring in the middle of Korakuen Hall. I really wish I could find more words for it, but it was amazing. Really just made me go completely out of breath when I stepped into the ring for that match. And yeah, it flew by. Honestly, I wish I had a longer match, but it is what it is. But yeah, I definitely want to go back there one day.
All right, definitely. Hopefully, happens soon once the pandemic slows down a bit.
Yeah,
so, during Dragon Gate, you mentioned that you did get injured, and then with COVID hitting, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy in Hong Kong?
So after the initial injury at the beginning of March, it did take some time before I got the injury actually treated. So we found out there was something wrong with my leg, and obviously with COVID hitting, all the shows and everything was suspended. So I think had that not happened, I might have stayed behind, a bit longer to train. But obviously I was sitting there and I couldn't do anything. So we flew back, and obviously I had to go through a period of self-isolation at home. And I wasn't actually able to go see a doctor because they had policies on, patients returning from overseas. So I had to wait 2 weeks, and then we went to get a proper diagnosis, and we found out the leg was broken. And it was about, from then to the surgery in Hong Kong at the end of March, it was about a whole month before I got the injury. So I spent the bigger half of the last half of the year just focusing on rehab and trying to get some basic functionality back into my leg, because it really was at a point where this is my first surgery, and coming out of it, I thought I'd recover maybe a bit faster, but it was just things like being able to stand on one leg for more than 2 seconds, and eventually going back to being able to jump again. So yeah, I've been really focused on trying to get my fitness back, trying to get the strength back into my leg, and yeah, it's come a long way, but yeah, I think the progress is good right now.
All right, best of luck to you. So we are live with Michael Su here on Chinese Wrestling Sit Down. Do we have any more questions? Make sure you guys keep them coming. Let's check it out. Aaron, again, what are your biggest wrestling inspiration?
I think who is my biggest wrestling inspiration?
Sorry, who? Yeah.
This gets thrown around a lot, but my favorite wrestler ever is AJ Styles. I started watching, TNA back in 2004, and there were a number of matches that I watched, but the very first AJ Styles match I watched, I believe, was when Jeff Hardy made his debut in TNA. So AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy for the X Division Championship. And I just remember being so mesmerized by AJ, his confidence in the ring, the fluidity and the way he moved, and just his whole aura was so cool to me. And yeah, all I wanted to be was an AJ Styles, and that's actually part of the reason why I had a hood made into my stitched into my white jacket as I got new gear, because I wanted to be AJ Styles so bad. But yeah, that's he is my biggest inspiration for wrestling.
All right, awesome. That was Turning Point, I think, right? Turning Point 2004, I want to say, but who knows which year. All right, next question, Chester. So how about the AWGC Champion? It just set up a few days ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So the AWGC Championship was obviously something when I first started training with the guys here at HKWF, I really wanted to get my hands on, because you go into wrestling wanting to be champion, right? And especially for Hong Kong, that there's a special sense of pride that comes with that. So it's definitely a championship I want to challenge for. I really, really wanted to have a match against Ronald when he still held on to the championship, but obviously with the pandemic and the things that have transpired over the last year, that soon became impossible. And look, I hope it goes really well. Thailand are very fortunate right now to be able to host pro wrestling shows, and I hope that championship gets defended with the amount of respect that it deserves, because by the time that all this goes back to normal and the championship can be defended again in Hong Kong, I definitely want my name thrown in that list.
All right, that's a challenge to you. What is your status with Dragon Gate from Lamsam?
Oh, there is no particular status. I was lucky enough to be afforded an opportunity to go on a tryout tour with him, and it did go quite well up until obviously the injury. So, with the pandemic hitting earlier this year and everything stopped for about 4 to 5 months, there was really no update from over there. And at present, if I'm not mistaken, Japan has banned the entry of all foreign nationals going into Japan. So they've stopped with work visas and everything. So with travel being impossible right now, I guess that is on hold. But when my recovery really hits 100% and when things do go back to normal, it will definitely be a goal of mine to be able to work for Dragon Gate again, because that experience for me was really, really rewarding, and I want to go back and try to improve even more.
All right, awesome. Kelvin, man, how's it going? Nelly, how's your recovery?
It's going good, Nelly. Recovery is going good. I should be ready soon.
What in a percentage form is your recovery so far? Would you say 90% around there? Or?
Yeah, I'd put it at about 90%. Not 90%. It's still a little bit away from where I'd like it to be, but to be completely frank, these type of injuries, especially once you've had like screws and bolts like put into your bones, it never really gets back to being 100%. So I think I'm doing as well as I could at the moment.
All right, what's up with the Conspiracy boys from Conspiracy himself? What's up with the boys?
He's probably still mad that I tried to remove that ugly wig of his on my debut, and probably, salty about the number of times that he's come up short in MKW so far. Nothing's up. He can move on to the next question, please.
Yeah, get out of here, Mike. Okay, Chairman Al, will we see you starting your own faction?
I don't know. That's the good thing about I guess sort of laying low for the last half a year. It gives me a lot of space to think and put things together. And yeah, if never say never, that's the motto of wrestling, right? Never say never. Who knows? It might be a direction, but right now I'm very focused on myself.
So let's just say there's 2 people to choose in your faction. In Asia, like who would you choose? On top of your head.
Giving me the pick from all of Asia.
Let's not count people in New Japan. How about that? Because then you can just select anybody, right? So let's just say people. Let's say
excluding
promotions that you wrestled in. How about that? Promotions that you wrestled in. Pick 2 people to be in your faction.
Okay. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but at the very first Belt and Road tournament,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I got to know Shiho and Li Junyan very well on a personal basis, and I always thought the three of us could mingle together quite well
Oh, there you go.
in a group. So yeah, if there was ever a trios group or the foundation for something larger, I'll definitely recruit those two guys.
There you go. That's potential right there. Battling the stable. There you go, Chairman.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. I guess that's it for all the questions. All right. So let's plug some social media. Where can we find you on social media? Let me see if I have it here. There you go.
There we go. Michael JZ Su. That's the same handle across Twitter and Instagram.
All right. So make sure you guys follow Michael Su on Twitter and Instagram at Michael JZ Su.
Yep, that's correct.
All right. If you like me, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Leung. And we'll have more information on the future episodes of Chinese Wrestling Sit Down. And of course, make sure you guys follow MKW on social media. Facebook, Instagram is MKW China. YouTube is Middle Kingdom Wrestling. And on Twitter is MKW Wrestling. And middlekingdomwrestling.com for the website. So hope you guys been enjoying MKW Blast Off. So we are wrapping up here. What do I have here? So yeah, wrapping up the interview here. Last question: what are your goals in 2021, basically?
Just to get back to wrestling, really. I've been, ever since I started, this is the longest amount of time I spent away from a ring, almost to a point where I sort of don't really remember how it feels. So yeah, I'm desperately yearning to get back in the ring, just to have a match against anybody. But as soon as travel restrictions, are gone, basically, I'm definitely the first one to be on a plane somewhere to the nearest wrestling show. So yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch to make that happen, please do. But focused on trying to recover as much as possible, and when I feel that it's time, I'll definitely try to get myself somewhere to make sure I get back in the ring. Yeah,
you're one of the guys that hasn't been part of the MKW Blast Off so far.
Yeah.
So who? Name one person that you want to face first match back in MKW. Who would it be?
Dragon.
Zombie Dragon for the title. Oh, sorry, not for the title, but. All right. So any more questions here? All right. So we've mentioned dream match, probably Zombie Dragon. Who would you want to wrestle in a dream match situation?
Oh,
probably AJ, I assume.
Yeah, maybe AJ. Wow, that's I've never really thought about who. If I had to narrow it down to one wrestler, maybe The Rock. If this was an absolute dream match, if it could happen anywhere, any place, it would be WrestleMania against The Rock. Because why not? That's about as big of a match as anybody could possibly get against the biggest star the industry has ever seen. So if that,
in Hollywood too.
Exactly.
What would the stipulations be?
Stipulation, what? Just a good old fashioned wrestling match. I don't need it to have a lot of weapons, or it doesn't need to be anything crazy like a Falls Count Anywhere or Last Man Standing. Just give me a good old one-on-one match against the Great One.
Winner gets to be in a Fast and Furious lead.
next or the next Hobbs.
Hobbs and Shaw, yeah.
Hobbs and Shaw.
All right, Jeff, Matt. Wow. When are you getting a haircut?
I'm actually kind of happy, like leaving it to grow for a bit. I haven't tried doing this for a number of years, so yeah, I'll just see what happens and let it grow out.
Grow it as long as the man grows. How about that? And then you get a haircut.
Jeff, I'll grow it back to OG man bros length. Down here, and see what happens when I swing it around.
There you go, like a shampoo commercial. And why do they keep calling you Nelly?
You'd have to ask Zombie Dragon for that.
All right. In our next interview. All right. So I guess that's it for all the questions. I want to thank everybody for watching live on Facebook and YouTube. And thank you, Michael Su, for joining us for a very last episode of Chinese Wrestling Sit Down 2020. Everybody, happy holidays, stay safe, happy New Year, 新年快乐, 新年快乐, whatever you guys want to say, whatever country you are in.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll see you in 2021 for our next Chinese Wrestling Sit Down. Michael Su, thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Cheers.
All right, cheers, everybody.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.